What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy right here. It's MMA Reloaded, and we are live for episode 26. Woo! Woo! Episode 26. MMA Reloaded Real Talk, the show where we talk real, we never lie, cheat, and steal. Today, I don't have to do the particulars. I don't have to stop the show for any particular reason today because Jamie Varner, that's right, episode 26, folks. And I told you guys I had something big in store leading up to our 30th episode. And it is big tonight. It's not a triple threat edition. I have former WEC, former WEC lightweight champion, one of the original lightweights, one of the toughest dudes to ever compete in mixed martial arts. Jamie Varner, folks, is ready to come on the show. With MMA Reloaded, it's been a long time since we've heard from Jamie Varner in the MMA community. I remember watching him win the WEC championship off of Razor Rob McCullough. He's faced the best in the sport. He's beaten the best in the sport. He's had fights of the night. He is, folks, without a doubt, one of the original lightweights, man. And it will be an honor to talk with Jamie Varner. Folks, thank you so much for joining us once again, man. You're here being a part of the revolution in MMA social media. So thank you so much for that. And folks, also thank you so much for everyone who tuned in into our last episode, episode 25, where it was our second triple threat episode with my boys Johnny Munoz and Alan Martinez. And folks, that was a real intense conversation. And I love intense conversations because you kind of get into the nitty gritty with your guys, with the guys you're on the other side of the screen. So it's something to sort of, it makes it a lot more interesting for me. Because fighters fight, and we see fighters fight in the cage or in the ring, but you kind of wonder what goes through that fucker's head. Well, that motherfucker's crazy. What's going through his mind when he fights? Everyone thinks that, yeah. So when you think something like that, you kind of think, okay, I want to know this guy. Yeah. So that's exactly why I ask the questions I ask. And I hope to, dig deep into Jamie Varner and folks, get Jamie's views on his career. It's been a very decorated career, folks. As a wrestler, as a junior NC, as the NCJAA, yeah, as a NCJAA competitor, and you know what, folks, you kind of have that sort of starstruck feeling, yeah, when you get someone like Jamie Varner or like Anthony Njokuani, Johnny Munoz, Jerome Vera, guys like that. So it's a great feeling for me, man, and I hope you guys enjoy the show tonight. And of course, folks, I hope you guys are tuning in to MMAReloaded.co.uk. We are live and direct. And of course, folks, you can watch every episode of MMA Reloaded's podcast. You can relive the action with classic fights that we put up and that we put up every few days. Right now, folks, we sort of take a memory lane trip to Pride FC and take you back to some of the greatest moments with a highlight reel. And also, folks, merchandise, MMA Reloaded. The shirts are there, man. Pre-order only. And yeah, man. And we have every design you want for every occasion. Yeah. And folks, MMA Reloaded, man. That is your new revolution in mixed martial arts social media. And that's for sure. Folks, as we tindle down to now mid to late 2020, it's been a shit year for everyone with COVID-19. It's been a hard year. It's been a tragic year. It's been unfortunate. But I'm glad I could keep you guys as entertained as possible. And the thing is, for us as human beings, it's so important, yeah, for us to fuck the hate, yeah, be there for each other, man, be there for your fellow man, yeah, be there for the women, the children, the fucking dogs, the cats, whatever, man. Be there for each other. Support your family, your loved ones. They're the ones that really matter. So, folks, uh, as this week goes on, this Saturday night, Frankie Edgar makes his UFC bantamweight debut against Pedro Munoz. Now Frankie Edgar's been a lightweight. He's been a featherweight. Lightweight, of course, being the lightweight champion. Featherweight, he did have that. He had, I think, 2 or 3 championship shots. He faced Jose Aldo first, and he lost that at UFC 200. Then he went off and he fought Max Holloway for the championship just recently, and Max beat him. So Frankie Edgar needed something to reinvigorate and reinvent himself with, in my opinion. And so he goes now down to bantamweight. Now, if you look at bantamweight, you have that whole division, folks, 1 to 15, is full of killers. They are killers. Yeah, left, right, center. Wherever you look in that division, they are killers. Yeah, and Frankie Edgar faces one of the guys with such potential, and a guy who does not play around when he gets in there. A guy who's beaten Cody Garbrandt, a guy who's trained with Lyoto Machida, Pedro Munoz. Now, Pedro Munoz there, folks, the only thing wrong with a guy like that is consistency. You want to be consistent as a fighter. If you're not consistent as a fighter, it makes it hard. Oh, folks, Jamie Varner is just about set and ready. Let's get on.
What's up,
Jamie?
dude?
What's going on, my man? Bro, I have to say, first up, bro, it is a fucking pleasure, man. It is a pleasure, my bro. How's it going, man?
It's going really well. Here, let me turn on those lights above me real quick.
Okay.
Oh. Cool.
Great.
Yeah,
Great,
got a little bit more light.
Man, first off, man, I wanna thank you for agreeing to be on the show, man. I've been a big fan of yours for a long time, since you won the WC lightweight, and then I'm still a fan, man. And how's it all been going for you in lockdown, bro, and COVID?
Yeah, it's been going really well, and thank you, man. I really appreciate it. It's been a long time. It's not very frequent where people like ask me for interviews or still even remember me. I mean, my last fight was 2014. I mean, it was a pretty long time ago. So, man, it's crazy, and I still see guys that I fought that are still fighting, still competing at a high level, and people are like, "Hey, dude, like, do you still have the itch?" What I tell people, I got started in MMA like pretty young. I had my very first amateur MMA fight in a cage when I was 18 years old. I was still in high school. Where are you located at?
I'm in London, England, bro.
Okay, so what you guys are like, I think you guys are 8 hours ahead of us?
Yeah, 8 hours, yeah.
About 8 hours. And then how does your guys' school work, your school system? I know you guys have your uni, but is it 12 levels like it is in the United States, or how does it work with you guys?
So it's 12 levels.
Okay.
Then we have this thing called sixth form. It's kind of like college. Yeah,
Okay.
bro. So we have that, and then you have your chance to go to university if you want.
Okay.
And that's about it. That's where it ends for us.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I was 18 years old. I was in 12th grade. So in the States, we call it our senior year. And I had my very first cage fight. I had 500 kids from my high school show up to it. So I started in 2003, and I had a pretty long career. I mean, 11 years from 2003 to 2014 when I retired. And then I was in the UFC in 2006. So it's like eight of those years was it with like the best organization at the highest level. So my body just got beat up. I can't take that shit no more.
Oh man, I kind of see where you're coming from, Jamie. I mean, what makes a great fighter is knowing when to call it a day, bro. And I think we see a lot of that now in the modern day, where a lot of guys don't know when to call it a day, and after their careers, they kind of feel all beat up and battered and bruised, and they look older than they actually are. But no, I commend you on that, bro. I commend you on having that maturity to say, you know what, Jamie Varner, it is time to just call that as it is.
Dude, I don't know if it was so much like maturity, and there's going to be some really hot takes in this interview, but I don't know if it's so much maturity as it was fear, you know, just kind of being burnt out as well. I mean, it's been quite the grind. You know, I started wrestling when I was 15 years old. And it's like once I learned that sport and all the work that has to go into it, there's something different about like one-on-one sports or individual sports like swimming or cross-country running or track. There's something about those where there's like that work ethic element and the physicality to it. But then with MMA, there's that same component where it's the individuality where you have to outwork your opponent. But then you also have to be able to outthink them and out-technique them and out-strategize them. And for me, the thinking, the strategy, and that stuff wasn't the hard part. It was more so the preparation, getting ready for the fights, and that type of stuff that really that held me back, and like all the injuries too, man. There was just a lot of fear. I started going into these fights like what's going to happen this time, you know, like what's it going to be? Because in 2014 I had 4 fights or 3 fights within like a year time span. It was Gleason Tebow, and I wasn't injured for that fight. I just took that fight on short notice. I didn't really want that fight, and I was just coming off an injury. That was a really tough fight coming off of almost a year-long layoff. So I didn't really want that fight. I wanted a different fight. I wanted an opponent that fit my style a little bit better. But after that fight, man, when I lost, I was just trying to just chase a win. I was just doing whatever I could to try and get a win. So like I kept taking fights on short notice, or I was taking these fights injured. And like the Abel Trujillo fight, took that fight on short notice. I was walking out to the cage. And I took a step. There was like downstairs. I had to walk up these few steps to go up to the main level to walk out. And I took a wall. Like I made like a wrong step, and I pulled a muscle in my right calf walking out to the cage. Like it felt like someone shot me in the back of the leg. I'm like, oh fuck. And I'm walking, and I'm like kind of limping. I'm like, oh man. And I'm about to fight this dude. I'm like, so I'm like trying to get my mind right. And then the fight after that, I broke my ankle within like the first minute. I got kicked in the leg. That was wild. And then the fight after that, I knocked myself out, hit my head on the cage, or hit my head on the mat. So it's just, I couldn't stay healthy, dude. And I just got scared.
I think, Jamie, right now, bro, I think I was gonna touch on the James Krause and Abel Trujillo fights a bit later on, but no, now that you mention it, in the James Krause fight, bro, how were you feeling in that fight? And did you know your ankle was broken when you hurt it, or did you feel, you know, fuck? Because you continued, bro. You tried to stand up and you tried to keep fighting on it. did you know it was broken, Jamie, or did you think, nah, it's cool, just a sprain or whatever?
It's a really good question, and to be honest with you, when I look back and I think about that fight, and I've reran that fight through my head, and I can almost see it from like an out of body perspective. I can almost like watch myself from like a I don't know, just from like a different perspective, to where like almost like a first person shooter perspective, where I can see it and like I remember what I was thinking, and it was. He kicked me in the calf, like the outside of my lead leg, and I didn't notice anything. I'm like, oh, okay, well, this is a unique strategy. I've never experienced that before. But after like one or two of those kicks, I noticed that I couldn't stand on that leg, like he had like deadened the nerves or something. Like I had my foot was completely asleep. I couldn't feel it. So when I did the damage trying to keep going, like you saw me, I kept rolling it. That's where I ended up getting the fractures, was like from all the rolling it and trying to stand on it. But those nerves were dead. So James Krause executed a good technique. I'd never seen it before. I wasn't prepared for it. Never trained that. So, kudos to him on that. But my mindset in the fight was I had this problem in front of me, which was James Krause, and I had a very simple solution. I am better than that guy in every aspect. I'm better in jiu-jitsu. I'm better condition. I'm stronger. I'm a better striker, much better wrestler. Just overall championship caliber. I've been in big fights. I've won big fights. I've been the underdog. Like, he was a relatively easy fight. He had a great technique, and that's a beautiful thing of this sport, man. You never know what can happen. So he executed a great technique, but I had no idea, man. I knew something was wrong, and when I couldn't stand, I'm like, what the hell's wrong with my leg? But it didn't hurt, dude. So I don't want to sit here and sound like I was this big tough guy, a badass. No, dude, it didn't hurt. It really didn't hurt. I don't like needles. I got these tattoos, and I was freaking terrible. So I don't like pain. And after the round was over, I remember looking at my trainer. I'm like, we're going to have to tape this up or something. And I saw the docket. I'm like, all right, yep, it's fucked. I'm like, it's definitely, I knew it was fucked for sure.
Was it more adrenaline, Jamie, that kept you going, bro? Was it like, you know what, fuck it, it doesn't hurt? Or was it adrenaline, bro? Because you said that you couldn't feel your foot at all.
Yeah.
And was it like the adrenaline that kept you going, bro, in that fight?
I would say it had to have been, right? It had to have been the adrenaline and the fact that I was fighting somebody. So it's like, I think the animal instincts kind of took over, right? Like my leg is fucked, but someone's trying to kill me. Like, so I had this fight or flight type decision to make. Do I worry about my leg, or do I try and fight this guy? So I think my mind was just was there. But once everything settled down and like I was able to like kind of catch my breath, then the pain set in, and it was painful for about 3 weeks. And I'll be honest with you, man, I cut my boot off after like 2 days. They took me to the hospital. I was in a cast. I cut the cast off. I bought this air cast and just put that on there and wore that instead. So I wasn't the best patient either. I cut that cast off so I could start training sooner.
I mean, now that you say that, Jamie, you talk about that injury, which was so infamous, bro, because you had thousands and thousands of fans in the crowd, bro, and they were cheering when you continued, and it was like ooh and ahs and all that shit. And bro, as a fighter, now that you're a veteran, bro, and you're a legend that retired, when we talk about mentality and a fighter having a strong mental health and a strong head and being headstrong, bro, how important is it for, if you're a veteran, if you're an up and comer, if you've got like 10 fights under your belt, does it matter, Jamie? Because being headstrong is so important. How important is it to have for a fighter to have a good mental mental game.
I think that's what defines the fighter, right? I think the mental capacity that you have to have, like the mental fortitude and the mental toughness you have to have to just make it to the UFC separates a lot of people from like the normal, right? Like everybody goes through shit, man. Everybody goes through shit. We all have our struggles that we're going through, you know, and our struggles are very similar, right? Like you never know what kind of bullshit someone's going through. Maybe they have money, but guess what? Maybe they have girl problems or son problems or mom problems or dad problems. They were abused, or, you know, maybe they have this insecurity of never feeling good enough, or, you know, whatever. So we all go into this shit with like a chip on our shoulder. We all have our struggles, but I think with fighters to have that fortitude, and it's super important that even when it's the darkest of the dark, you have to believe that there's light at the end of the tunnel. You have to believe it, because if you don't, that's when you see fighters give up, right? Like you'll see a guy start to take a pounding, and then and then when they tap or they give up, it's because they don't see that light anymore. And I think that can be conditioned, because for me earlier on in my career, I wasn't as mentally tough as I was later on in my career. It took me hitting rock bottom, and it took me like going through some of these fights and making mistakes. And like, dude, like there are people like, I would never give up, and I'd never give. That's fucking bullshit. Everybody has a breaking point. Everybody has given up. And I remember times where I had given up in big moments. There were fights that I had given up in big moments where I just mentally, like, and it wasn't like a conscious thing, dude. It was just like, it was almost like it's subconscious. It was like the decision was made for me. I didn't really get to take, like, didn't really get to fully think it out. It's like your body's like, dude, you're not in this fight. You need to back out, or this isn't your time. You need to move. And you learn to start acknowledging those thoughts that come into your mind when you're in those shitty situations. You learn to acknowledge them and how to deal with them as you get older. But it takes getting to that point of fear where those voices are getting into your head, and it takes listening to them and then having to suffer the consequences of listening to those voices to really learn, like, fuck, that was kind of cowardly. I shouldn't have done that. Or you regret it. And then it's something that sticks with you. And then you can do one of two things. It can either define you or it can shape you. And for me, it just, like, those moments, every time I got into those moments, because it started off in my wrestling career when I was a kid. I remember my sophomore year wrestling a JV wrestling match and giving up. Jeez. I remember my junior year in the finals of a tournament, I was just getting my ass kicked by this guy, and I'd never gotten my ass kicked like that before. And I just got my ass kicked by this guy. I just remember, like, fuck it. Like, I'm getting my ass kicked. I'm giving up. And my senior year in the state finals, I don't know if I didn't give up because I was winning the match, but there was 10 seconds left in that match, and I just stopped wrestling. I was already like, I'm winning. I won. I'm the state champion. I was just relaxing and playing defense, and that motherfucker wanted it more, and he shot in for a takedown, and he was able to get it on the edge of the mat, and he stole, and he didn't steal. He earned a state title. I gave it to him. Dude, it's happened so many times in my life. And then there were even fights. Like, I'm trying to think of fights, specific fights where I was in where I just had enough. Like Shane Roller, the Shane Roller fight.
Bro, oh my God. That was one of the fights I wanted to, because I wanted to talk about your WEC career as well, man. That was like one of my next questions. And
cool, dude, fire away. I'm sorry that I'm taking you all out of your rhythm, man.
No. I love it, man. I love it because I'm getting such a mature opinion. Yeah, bro. And you've been through so much in this game, man. People don't realize that you're one of the original lightweights, bro. Yeah, and I love to and exactly what you've been saying there, bro. And you didn't take up no time, man. I love to hear stuff like that because It just shows that a fighter can, a competitor, an athlete, no matter what sport, bro. Yeah, you can either be too overconfident, you're not confident enough. Yeah, there's maturity that plays in it. There's the fact that you're coming off a loss, or you're on a loss of momentum, you're depressed, you're stressed. Yeah, bro, stuff like that. And you know what, Jamie? A lot of fans may not know, and you did mention it earlier, that you were in the UFC. Yeah, bro, way down. Yeah, 2 years before you actually got in the WEC, bro. You took that time out. You were young, Jamie Varner, 21, 22 years old.
Yep, 21, the UFC, man.
You came in at UFC 68, if I'm not wrong, bro, against Herms Franca, who
62.
was
UFC 62, Chuck Liddell versus Babalu Sobral.
Yeah. How, bro? I don't think you need to hear my next question, man. How did that feel, jumping into such a huge pay-per-view at such a young age?
Dude, that's another good question. That's an interesting story. I'll try and give you the shortest version possible.
No. Go ahead, Jamie, man. Go ahead, bro. The floor is yours.
Okay. So when I started my fighting career, I started in high school, and it was just to be like a hobby. I only did it just to say that I did it. Like that was my goal. Like I heard guys my sophomore year of high school, so grade 10, I heard people talking about fighting in this local promotion called Rage in the Cage. Yeah. And there was a senior, he was the toughest guy on campus. Nobody wanted to mess with him. And he was the tough guy toughest guy at school, and no one would mess with him. And he said he was supposed to fight, and then he backed out. And I remember him saying, "Oh, those are real fighters," and he got scared. And I'm like, I was a high school wrestler, and I'm like, and I remember watching cage fights. I'm like, it's like a wrestling match where you get to punch people. And I was thinking, like, there's been so many times I've wanted to punch people in wrestling matches. I'm like, I'll fucking do it. So I knew in grade 10 that I wanted to fight, but I just wanted to do it once. Yeah. So I ended up having that first fight my senior year, and then my goal changed. I'm like, oh, I want to see if I can make it, go pro. Maybe I can make some money doing this, because I enjoyed it, and it was a good way to cross train for wrestling. So too much of a good thing is still too much. Can we agree on that? Like, I think everybody can agree sex is great. I don't care your sexual orientation, but I think we can all agree sex is great. But if you have it every day, like multiple times a day, eventually you're going to get sick of it. You're going to want something. You're probably going to want a break. You're probably going to want to jerk off. You're probably just going to want to watch a movie. Probably just want to do something completely different. Yeah. But so wrestling, as fun as it was, I needed to get the fuck out of the wrestling room and do something different. So MMA for me was like a way to cross train. So I could still work out hard. I could still be lifting, running, wrestling, but I'm also punching, kicking, doing grappling, doing all these different things. So it was a great way to cross train for wrestling. And wrestling was how, like, I was going to college. That's how I was going to get my university paid for. Yeah. So in college, so right before my freshman year of college, and this was back in 2003, amateurs and pros in Arizona, the rules were pretty much the same. The only difference between amateurs and pros was pros got paid. So, so I made, the guys were essentially the same. My very first pro fight, or my very first amateur fight, was against a guy that went pro, but he had to fight, was a guy that was a pro, but he had to fight me amateur rules. He was like 6-2. I was 0-0 and 18 years old, still in high school, fighting this guy that was 6-2. I ended up beating him by decision, but anyway, so I had my first fight at the end of summer, right before my freshman year of college, and I made $100. Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. 3 30-packs of beer. We had a great party afterwards.
You can't go wrong. You cannot go wrong there, bro.
No.
Bro,
so let me get back to so again, this is kind of a long-winded story, but I'll get to the UFC. So when I went pro, I started fighting every summer as my job. So when wrestling season was over, I would take pro fights and I would travel around and fight guys for money, and I would make $4 or $5 grand in a summer, and that was enough money for me to survive on. I did that for 3 summers, and I was packing up my bags to get ready for to go back to college for my senior year. And I was packing up, and I got a call from my trainer at Arizona Combat Sports, Trevor. He's like, hey, he's like, you got a minute? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, how would you like to fight in the UFC? I'm like, what? He's like, they're bringing back the lightweight division. They got some few fights lined up. A guy got hurt. They need a guy in 3 weeks to fight Hermes Franca. I think you can beat him, but it's an opportunity for you to go into the UFC if you want it. So I'm like, fuck. I was in the car with my mom, actually, going to Starbucks. And I talked to my mom. I called my college wrestling coach. I called my high school wrestling coach. And I told them that, like, one of my main reasons for going to college was to be a fighter like Jens Pulver or Matt Hughes. Matt Hughes and Jens Pulver were the guys I looked up to. And they were both college wrestlers. Both of them wrestled in junior college first before going to Division I universities. Matt Hughes went to, I think, Northern LA, and then Jens Pulver went to, I think, Boise State. He went to college. Yeah. So those were guys that I looked up to, and Matt Hughes was a monster, and Jens Pulver, little guy that was a boxer. So for me, it was like those were the guys that I idolized, and I had wrestled in junior college. I was wrestling Division I, and now it was time to go to the UFC. So I said, yeah. I mean, because that was like the whole purpose. So my goals had shifted from, fighting, just wanted to fight once, to wanting to make it to a pro. Then once I was a pro, I'm like, I want to make it to the UFC. And then once I got to the UFC, my goal shifted again. I wanted to become a world champion. So going in when I was 21 years old, and I remember like just being starstruck, right? Like I saw Chuck Liddell, I saw Bob, I saw Randy Couture, I saw Tim Sale, I saw all these guys just walking around. And I'm like, oh, what the fuck? And then I'm going out. I remember like the walkout to the cage. And I'm walking, and I see fucking Tim Duncan from the San Antonio Spurs, a multiple-time MVP. Like, I know the NBA isn't like super big in England. You guys like football?
Oh, bro, we love the NBA here, man.
Okay, all right. But I know soccer, like football is your guys' main sport. But I saw Tim Duncan. I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm a Phoenix, Arizona guy, and there was like a lot of drama between the San Antonio Spurs and the Phoenix Suns for some playoff series and shit. But anyways, so it was just crazy. It was so surreal. I was this little kid, essentially. I was a boy going in there, and I was in that octagon, dude. I was just going 100 miles an hour. It's like, I don't remember being in there. It was fucking crazy. I was like deer in the headlights. All I did was react. I wasn't able to think at all. I was just training took over. I was surviving. It took time of me getting in there and being under those lights and understanding the pressure and the magnitude of those lights. And then also like the fear of the unknown. There's a lot of, for me, like my biggest insecurity growing up, and just even to this day as a grown ass man, is not being good enough. And so the fear of the unknown can also mess with that fear of not being good enough. Like, I've never trained with this guy before. I never fought this guy before. While I know my skills and I look better than him, to me, I always thought these guys were monsters, and I never thought I was good enough. So I would get scared going into these fights, dude. I would get scared that I was going to get knocked out. I would get scared that I was going to get embarrassed. And so a lot of times I would hold back. I wouldn't try as hard, or I'd play it safe. And that was one of those instances, like in the fight, like I think I just tried playing it safe. All I did was wrestle. It was the only thing I knew because I was scared, and it was the fear of the unknown. And honestly, man, it was like that first fight in the UFC was such a growing experience for me, because once it was all done and over with, I'm like, it really wasn't that big of a deal. It's just the the most fear comes from making a mistake in front of all those people and then having those fears about yourself actually become true. Like, that's the biggest thing. Like, to fall short, like I was telling myself I wasn't good enough. He's so good, he's so tough and all this shit. I'm not good enough. And then you go out there and you fight, and when you lose, when that fear gets like reinforced, that's like the shitty part. And then you have a decision to make. You can either keep that, you can stay the loser, and you can embody that, or you can learn from it. Like I told you earlier, I mean, it can either define you or it can shape you. And for me, it was one of those like defining moments defining, but also it shaped me into like the guy. It showed me exactly what I wanted. I wanted to be a world champion.
Fuck yeah, bro. I mean, Jamie, bro, to make, first of all, to make your debut in the UFC at 21 years old, is something so surreal. I mean, now, we see it a lot nowadays, but back then, young guys were just considered boys. So to grow up and to actually do this, and to be in the biggest spotlight in the world, bro, at 21 years old, it must have been starstruck. You must have been starstruck, man.
Scared shitless. Dude, I'll tell you a story. So I was going down to the sauna. This was Friday before weigh-ins. Friday before weigh-ins of that fight versus Hermes Franca, and we were at Mandalay Bay, and I had to go downstairs to the steam room because I had to lose my last few pounds. Yeah. And we run into Chuck Liddell. He's running around with his sauna suit on, and my trainer knows him. And I'm cutting weight, and I feel like shit. And I was overhearing Chuck Liddell saying, dude, I was just at the pool all day with these two chicks, and then I got these other two up in the room. I don't know what to do. I don't know if I just bring these girls back here, if I just go upstairs with the other two. And this is like the day of weigh-ins, and this guy's talking about having threesomes with two different sets of chicks. And I'm like sitting here just dying. And then I'm looking like, you're Chuck Liddell. Like you're the Iceman. You're a monster. You're a Hall of Famer. He was the most famous guy in the UFC at the time. Well, so it was, it was so crazy. The whole experience was surreal, man. So surreal.
I mean, bro, then you came into the UFC. Then you came into the WEC, sorry. And you know what? And that literally featured the guys who we see now as veterans. Back then they were just known, along with you guys were known as the next generation of guys to come in and do it. And you went 1-1 in the UFC, Jamie. How did that journey with the UFC end back then? Was it the fact that they released you, or did you just take another fight somewhere else?
No, that's actually a really good question. And it's actually a really good question. I'm glad I could explain that. So back then in 2007, the UFC acquired a bunch of organizations. They acquired WFA, WFA, World Series of, no, not World Series. They got World Extreme, WEC. I think they bought Affliction, and they may have even gotten Pride. I don't know. They bought a bunch of contracts back then. It's been so long, and I've had 30 concussions, but I knew this story much better a few years back. But so they bought a bunch of organizations, and essentially they bought those organizations to just buy the contracts. They did away with the WFA, and they did away with Pride, but they got the contracts, and they kept the WEC. And what they wanted to do is because they had a TV contract with the Versus channel. So Zuffa acquired all these companies. They dissolved most of them, but they kept the WEC, and they had a strategic plan to center the lightweight divisions around the WEC. Okay. And then eventually they were going to transition once the TV contract, I think it had something to do with TV contracts. I don't know for sure, but I think it had something to do with the Versus Comcast TV contract. So then they were going to dissolve all the WEC guys into the UFC when that contract was over. Again, I'm not for sure about that, but that was the plan that I was told from my manager. So they approached me because I was 21, 22 at the time. And they had just got this organization. They were going to center around lightweights, and they wanted to have more talent down there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was an up-and-coming guy, right? I had a great fight with Hermes Franca, who was ranked 5th in the world at the time. And then, and I think that fight, I had the most takedowns in UFC history in a fight before George St. Pierre, lay and prayed on somebody. Yeah, like I had like a ridiculous amount of takedowns in that fight. But anyways, so they centered it around all the lightweights, and they actually gave me a pay bump and a signing bonus to move over from the UFC to the WEC. So I was 22 years old, and they're like, we have this opportunity, we have this organization, we guarantee that all your fights will be on TV. It's going to be on the Versus Network, which is in Comcast. It goes into 80 million homes. You'll always be on TV. It'll be on like Wednesday nights and Sunday nights. So there's not a lot of competition. So for me, it was just a good opportunity to kind of raise my stock, to get some TV time. And you said it, dude. The best, what ended up being the best fighters, the lightweight fighters, were in the WEC. Because as soon as they merged the WEC and the UFC over, the WEC champions became the UFC champions. Now, granted that there are 2 weight classes the UFC didn't have, but Benson Henderson and Anthony Pettis, they came over right away and won those belts. So, I mean, they were the best fighters. The WEC had the best lightweight fighters, and as you know, like Donald Cerrone, Anthony Pettis, Benson Henderson. I mean, myself. There were just a lot of old time good guys. Eddie Wineland's still around. Dominic Cruz, but there are a lot of tough guys back then, man.
And there are some guys which that got moved over to the UFC from the WEC that we don't see anymore, and there are some guys which I'm kind of ashamed of that. Where like Miguel Torres, and guys like Brian Bowles and stuff like that. So I would have liked to see how they would have progressed in the UFC a lot more than they actually did, because there are some guys who came in to the UFC and from the WEC and didn't show that sort of, this is what brought me into the game and this is why I'm in the UFC right now. Jamie, why do you think that is? Do you think it's because of that level of competition kind of stepped up a little bit, or was it something else?
Well, the competition was the same. The competition was the same because the UFC didn't have 145 or 135, right? They were fighting the same guys. They just were wearing different shit, right? There was just a different color canvas. There's a different color canvas on the octagon, and the cage was the same. The cage was the same shape. It just the UFC one's a little bit bigger than the WEC one. They were fighting the same guys, man. I just think it's a war of attrition, man. And for guys like myself and Brian Bowles and Miguel Torres, you can't fight Father Time, and everybody's clock's different, dude. Everybody's clock's different. Like I'm 35 years old now, and I have an abundance of energy. Like I still feel young. I still feel like I'm 25. I still feel like I can do a lot of stuff. I can still run a sub 6-minute mile. I can still do a standing backflip. I can still do a lot of the shit that I used to do. The difference now, man, is I just don't want to go through the pain anymore. I don't want to go through the pain. It's just not worth it to me anymore to have to go through the pain. And I think Brian Bowles, Miguel Torres were very similar in those. I think Miguel Torres tried. He's got that Mexican pride that just won't ever give up. He's got that fire and that fight in him that he brought into the cage that made him so dynamic, that made everybody love him. Like, I love the guy. He was a good friend of mine. Like, all the WEC guys, we were a very close-knit group. We were good. We were all buddies. And I just think, dude, time caught up with us, and it catches up with people differently. And you never know what people are going through, man. Miguel had a tough life, dude. I had a tough life. My dad was an alcoholic and a drug addict. My mom was an alcoholic and a drug addict. I was fucking beat up and abused for a long time, man. And I would imagine there's a lot of fighters that have very similar stories, dude. And eventually, man, you just get fucking done fighting. You get tired of it. You get tired of fighting, and it's just you're ready to do something different.
No, for sure, man. And I guess that's what fans tend to forget is it's so easy to criticize people now on social media, yeah, and all this shit. But how do you know what's actually going on behind the scenes? You don't. And I think you're so right when you say, you know what, it's your body, it's the way you feel. Yeah, it's not the fans' decision, it's your decision whether you want to retire, whether you want to carry on. And I think you know what, Jamie, when and we'll touch on this a bit later with you, bro. Is with you, yeah, and you came into, I think it was your second fight in the WEC, and you beat Razor Rob McCullum for the WEC lightweight championship in 2008. Yeah, Jamie, and I have to say, bro, it was so sick because I was watching that shit here, yeah, bro, and for me it was so good, man, because I was Razor Rob was a veteran, bro. I used to watch him from for a long time, and to see you come in and do what you did that night to win the belt, how did that feel to you, man? Because you were still so young, still in your early 20s. How did that feel for you, man, to have that belt and beat a guy like that of that caliber?
Yeah, man, that's fuck, man. You're asking all the good shit. You know, and I'm gonna give you all the deep responses that I can.
Go for it, man. Go for it.
I had been the bridesmaid quite a few times in my life, and it was hard for me not to. It was hard for me not to just embody that. It was hard for me not to just feel like that was like my cross to bear. What I mean by that is, in high school wrestling, I took second in state. In junior college nationals, I took second at nationals, right? So those were like the two things that meant the most to me. I was 18 years old, wrestled, fucking, my goal was to be a state champion. I took second. Okay. 2 years later, junior college, the goal was to become a national champion so I could get a good Division I scholarship to a top university, and I took second. That was at 20 years old. So then at 23 years old, 2 years later, when I went going and fighting that world title, I had so much fear around that I was going to take second again, that I was going to fall short. And that fight for me was the greatest moment of my life because it was a defining moment for me. It showed me that I was good enough, that I wasn't defined by the two times that I had fallen short, that I had taken second place. That I had told myself that and not only did I tell myself, but I had my dad from the time I could ever remember. He would always say, if you want to be the best, you got to be the first one to practice. You got to be the last one to leave. But then right after that, he would look at me. He's like, you'll never be the best. There will always be someone better than you. And I just remember thinking like, well, why? Like, why can't I be the best? Yeah. Why can't I be the person that's better than everybody else? But he would always say that, like, you want to be the best, you got to be the first one to practice, last one to leave, but you'll never be the best. There's always going to be someone better. And so, like, dude, I started to fucking just, like, really believe that about myself, that I was always just going to fall short. So I almost had, like, this victimhood mentality. And that fight, that first round, the game plan was, and I think everybody could probably fucking figure out what the game plan was. I was a Division I wrestler. I was a fucking All-American in junior college, like, and he was a fucking world champion striker. It was a grappler versus striker. The game plan was to take him down and smash his face in or choke him. That was the fucking game plan. Yeah. His game plan was to keep the fight up on the feet and fuck me up. There was no qualms about the game plans. We knew exactly what we were getting ourselves into. The one thing that he didn't know, and the one thing that a lot of people didn't know, is that I had started boxing when I was 11 years old, and I had only done it for a couple months when I was 11. But I had started boxing when I was 11 to get my hand-eye coordination better for baseball. You know, catching a ball, throwing out your glove, all that shit, hand-eye coordination, punching shit. They're pretty fluid. And so I did it for a few months when I was 11. So I got introduced to the sport at a young age. Then at 17, 18, when I started training for MMA, I started doing Muay Thai and kickboxing and boxing and stuff. So I did that in the off season for college. So I was always doing a little bit of boxing and Muay Thai. And then the university I went to, Lock Haven University of Pennsylvania, they had a Division I wrestling team, but they also had a boxing team. So I did both in college. So I actually won a national title in college for boxing.
Oh shit.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so they had there's 85 teams in the whole country that have boxing, and 64 of them go to our national tournament, and I ended up winning. I won the tournament, and so it was great. I got this big belt. I was an All-American, and so going into that fight, I don't think they knew that I had striking, and so after the first round, I was taking him down, but he kept getting back up. He was doing this thing called a wall walk, and it's not anything I'd ever really seen before. But they had a really good game plan going into that fight against me. So I got tired after the first round. I gassed myself out. I think I took him down 3, 4, 5 times trying to hold him down. Fuck.
Yeah.
And then I remember going back to my corner, and I was almost defeated. I'm like, there's no way I can keep this fucking going for 25 minutes or for another 20 minutes, because after the 5-minute round, there's just no way. I'm like, I'm gonna get my fucking head kicked off. And so I was going, and my trainer could just tell this is probably the most beautiful moment with me and my trainer. He knew me very well, and he did the right thing in this moment. I came over there, and I was kind of defeated because I knew I was in a world of hurt if I had to keep going that pace, because there's no way I could keep it. And he put his forehead to my forehead, and he's like, Jamie, we're gonna have to box him. You're gonna have to box him. You're just gonna have to stand up with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna have to box him, and so that's all he said. He's like, you're just gonna have to box him, and so he gave me my water, and I had accepted it, and I went out there, and I got hit a couple times, I got kicked, and then dude, the training took over, and I was jabbing, punching, slipping, hitting shots, and I'm like, I'm hitting this motherfucker, and I'm seeing what he's doing coming back at, because dude, I had no confidence. I had no confidence in my striking because I never had to really use it in a fight, because my wrestling was so dominant and my grappling was so dominant that I could wrestle guys, and I was strong enough and explosive enough that I could wrestle them, and I would usually just TKO them, right? TKO them, or they'd give me their back, I'd choke them or whatever. So it was my fight, I never had to use it, especially back then, because the guys just weren't as good as they are now. Guys are much more dynamic and well-rounded back then. You were a one-trick pony back then. And for me, I was one of the first generation, that first wave, me, George St. Pierre, some of the guys that could do all of it really proficiently, right? All-American wrestler, national champion boxer, multiple world champion in jiu-jitsu. I won worlds in jiu-jitsu, won Pan Ams, blue belt, purple belt. So I was one of the first, and so was George St. Pierre. And then you started seeing that new wave of guys come that could do it all. But yeah, man, it was really surreal, man. And it was that fight was a really defining moment in my career, because it gave me the confidence to start striking in fights. And that is what made me a fan favorite. That fight is what made people like you want to see me. It's what made people like me, because I would go out there and I'd throw bombs, and motherfuckers would either get knocked out or, I'd lose the fight. But nevertheless, it was always exciting.
I mean, Jamie, with that high point, there always comes a low point in every great fighter's career. And I know it's going to be a sensitive topic, but at the end of your WC career, bro, it didn't end, I think, the way you wanted it to. And I think a lot of that we've touched on with the fight with Shane Roller and ending it all off. How did you feel, and what was your mindset like after those fights and then leaving the WEC after that?
It's a really good question, and it's got a long answer. So
go for it, man. Go for it.
2010 was a really rough year. 2009 was even worse. I fought Donald Cerrone in 2009. I broke my hand and my foot. I had a compound fracture in my hand. I had a broken foot. So my right hand was in a cast. My left foot was in a cast. He kneed me in the face while on the ground, and I got a lesion in my right eye. And so I had like a patch over my eye for like 2 weeks where I just no light could hit it or whatever. Yeah. And after that fight, the fans like turned on me. They're thinking I gave up in this fight, or I was like looking for a way out. And they thought Donald Cerrone should have won. And I dominated that fight. Round one, dominated. Like, he didn't win a fucking round. I crushed him. First round was 10-8. Second round was most likely 10-8. Third round, I just fucked him up. Fourth round, I out-kickboxed him. I out-struck him. I out-wrestled him. I out-grappled him. The fifth round, he had confidence. The fifth round, he had more energy than me because he had gotten his fucking ass kicked for 20 minutes. I was doing all the ass kicking. Of course, he had a little bit more energy than me. He was just taking a beating the whole time. Yeah. And so when we got into a scramble, it went down to the ground, and as we were transitioning to come up, he kneed me in the face. I got knee in the face. I knew I was the downed opponent. So I just took some time. What the hell's going on? My eye was fucked. I couldn't really see. And the ref's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I can't really see. Give me a second." And then the doc, he's like, "All right." The doc comes in. The doc does this little fucking thing with my eye. And like, the doc said the fight was fucking over. Not me. The doc, like, everybody blamed me, like, "Oh, he quit. He gave up." What the fuck? Like, how like, then if I would have given up, if I would have quit, I would have lost the fight. That's like, I would have lost. He would have got his hand raised for a TKO if I would have quit. But they were able to spin it, or he was able to spin it, or the W's, they were able to spin it, and they cast me to be a bad guy. And there was nothing I could do to fix it, dude, because I was out for a year. I had to have 2 reconstructive surgeries on my hand. Luckily, I didn't have to have surgery on my foot, but I was in a cast for 8 weeks with my foot. I was in and out of a cast for 6 months with my hand. Yeah. So, like, I was fucked. And then I had to train and rehab and all this stuff, dude. So, right when I came back, and so after all that, they were really trying to, Donald Cerrone had a couple fights, and so they built up this big beef between me and him. And my first fight back was against Benson Henderson, and I fought Ben. I had trained with Ben before. I fucking crushed Ben. I crushed Ben before when we trained together, and then after, later on in my career, when it was like 2012 to 2013, I trained with Ben again. He like maybe won 2 or 3 rounds in 50 that we sparred. I crushed Ben. I beat Ben. I was better than him. The thing with Ben is fucking tough, and he doesn't give up. He believes in himself. Ben doesn't have the same type of fear that I have. Fear is what completely controlled and ruined my life. That fear of me not being good enough, and the fear of me like thinking, or me like, maybe it's more so paranoia than fear, but it all comes from me not being good enough, because like I never felt like the WEC like gave me the respect I deserved, like the no fear energy. Uriah Faber got that deal. Uriah Faber lost to Mike Brown. Yeah. But they were still like, he was still the face of no fear. Yet I was like racing motocross, doing all this shit. I was the fucking crazy cowboy. All the shit that cowboy is doing, I was doing that shit first. I had videos on my dirt bike and all the fucking fun shit. And no, like the WEC like decided to give that to fucking Uriah. Then the Amp Energy came in, and Budweiser came in. They gave everybody else the corporate deals, and like not me. So I started thinking like, man, it started like, you know, just kind of reinvigorating that fear of like, I'm not good enough. You know, what's wrong with me? Why am I not good enough? Why won't these guys? So then it made me speak. Then I started speaking out against them. I started calling them out on this shit. Like, dude, you guys aren't paying me. You're giving me bullshit fights. Like, what the fuck? Yeah. So I started giving pushback. Right after that fight with Ben, I wanted an immediate rematch. Like, I had been the champ. I had defended it. Like, I had made a mistake. I made a mistake. I shot my head on the wrong side. They wouldn't give me a rematch. They're like, they made me fight Kamal Shalarus, which was a very dangerous fight.
He's
okay.
A beast.
All right. Yeah, no one knows how fucking old he is. He was the UK Olympic wrestler. He was on the UK like Olympic wrestling team. Like, yeah, and he was a tough dude. But all right, and I thought I was the best in the world. I'm like, I'm the fucking best. Okay, I'll fight this guy. I fight this guy. He kicks me in the balls 4 fucking times.
Yeah.
First time a warning. Second time a warning. Third time they take a point away. Fourth time they give him another fucking warning instead of taking another point away or taking 2 points away.
Yeah.
Why would they change the rules? So warning,
and it should be
take a point away, and then it happens again a 4th time, either a DQ or another point or 2 points. Yes. It was in Canada. I don't even know what the fucking rules are in Canada, but it should have been something along those lines.
That was the WC 49 in Edmonton.
Yep.
Yeah.
The WEC brought Cecil Peoples. They brought that motherfucker up to Edmonton.
What?
They brought that motherfucker up to Edmonton. And he had me losing the fight. He had me. I won that fight. I won the first round, won the second round. I outstruck the guy. I outmoved the guy. I got taken down in the 3rd round. But I got up, and I still fucked him up. And I got kicked in the balls 4 times. They called that fight a draw. After that, I knew what the UFC was doing. I knew what they were doing. They wanted me to fight fucking Donald again. So it's either I won that fight with Benson Henderson, and then they made me and Donald fight again, rematch, or I lost that fight or I lose or get a draw with that fight with Kamal Shalarus, and then I have to fight Donald Cerrone again. They wanted to make that fight, and in an effort to make sure that they had that fight, they brought somebody to Edmonton to make sure that fight happened. They're just fucking corrupt, dude. They're corrupt. They're weasels. Yeah, man. They did a lot of fucked up shit. So when that all happened, I wanted to take a break. I wanted, like, after that fight, because I had fractured my hand in that Kamal fight, and I thought I broke my foot. I ended up going to the doctor. They're like, we can't see a break, maybe soft tissue damage. I ended up not getting an MRI when I got back home because the WEC is like, oh, well, you know, since you had a draw of that fight, we're going to match you up with Donald Cerrone in 2 months. What?
Do you want? Yeah.
And I'm like, I need time off, man. My hands hurt. Well, if you're going to have some time off, or if you don't take this fight, then we're going to probably sit you. Don't plan on fighting until next year.
What?
Dude, I had just come off of almost a year-long layoff. I was fucking broke, dude. We're not making money when we're not fighting for the most part, dude. And I was making like $15,000 to show and $15,000 to win. So I had $30,000, 20% goes to your trainer and manager, right? Another 20% goes to taxes. Okay, so you make $30,000. There's 40% of that 30 grand is fucking gone, dude, like pretty quickly.
Bro, I didn't know it was that fucking tough, man. Fuck.
Yeah. And yeah, so you have to take the fight, dude. Like I had no choice. I had to take the fight. I had to. Wow. And so when I lost that fight, and it was a close fight, but dude, that was one of those fights, like, I was kind of talking to it and I was alluding to it a little bit earlier, but I was just checked out, dude. Like I was so burnt out and just sick of the business side of the UFC. The business side of the UFC and the WEC is what ruined it for me. That's what like brought my career, I think, to an end, because while my heart was in it, my mind wasn't in it. And then when my mind wasn't in it, my body started taking a beating, because I was just putting my body through this shit that I wasn't truly in love with. And I don't know if that's like somehow, if there's some sort of correlation to that in getting the injuries or whatever. But I just went into that, and after that, I went into that Shane Roller fight just numb. Like I didn't care if I won or lost. And I went into that Donald Cerrone fight. Like I didn't care if I won or lost. I just wanted to hurt him, because I was in that position because of him. I was in that position because of what the WEC and what the UFC people were doing to me, dude. They just treated me so poorly. And man, if they had just known the type of person they had, like I was young and I was so impressionable, and all I wanted was like validation, dude. Like I just wanted them to like validate my efforts. Like, you're good enough. Pay me what I deserve to be paid. Put me on the flyers the way I need to be put on the flyers. Like for my title fight with Benson Henderson, they had Uriah Faber, who wasn't the world champion. They had Uriah on the poster as the main guy instead of me. Instead of me, dude. It was oh, dude. It was crazy. It was absolutely, yeah. I don't know.
But Jamie, then you turn around, you fuck the bad stuff, and you look at the good stuff, man. You look at after the WEC, you started running through guys again, bro. You racked up 2-3 wins. You went back into the UFC, and you beat Edson Barboza, bro. You were 4-1 in your last 5 fights after the WEC, back returning in 2014. How did you? What was the change? Did you make any changes after that, or was it just the break that did it for you, man? Was it did the break that you took off? Did that help you reinvigorate the mindset, bro?
That's actually a really good question too. Yeah. So, God damn, dude. I there's no like you're asking me these questions, and I could just give you an answer, but it'd be bullshit because there's like really no context behind it. So I keep giving you these fucking long-winded answers, but
go for it.
Yes.
Go for it,
yeah.
Jamie.
After that Shane Roller fight, I got cut, right? They said, fuck you, we're done with you. You gave us all the reasoning that we needed to fucking finally get rid of you. Yeah. Cool. I accepted that. I was okay with that. I had one of the good things is that all the money from that Donald Cerrone fight, all the money I had from the Shane Roller fight, I saved every fucking penny. I saved every penny. After I paid my taxes and all that shit, I saved every penny. I think I had about 100 grand, 80 grand. I think I had about 80 grand paid. And I just lived off it, dude. I took a year off. I moved to New Jersey. I got into this it was like this grad, post-grad, or it was this it was this biology program through Seton Hall University where you, in 3 years, you get your bachelor's in biology, and you get your physician assistant, which is like a master's degree. And I was like, you know what? I'm sick of fighting. I'm sick of this shit. I got a brain. I'm a pretty smart dude. I'm going to go do something different. I had a 3.5 GPA in college. And I never even tried in college. I didn't have to try. I studied, I think, to graduate and get my full degree, I maybe studied 40 hours all of college in 4 years. I didn't have to try that hard. I went to lectures. I would take notes, and I got shit pretty quickly. So I thought and I'll go do this. I'll do this school thing, and maybe that'll be my career. So I took that money. I moved out to New Jersey, and I started getting a little bit bored. I didn't really like this school. I didn't really like New Jersey, but I started training with some other fighters. I went to Jim Miller's camp, AMA Fight Club, and Mike Constantino. And this was
Nice.
2011. I was out there. And then I started training with some pro boxers in New Jersey. Then I started going to Tiger Schulman's with Jimmy Rivera and Louis Ganino, like those guys. I was training before they were fucking anything, before they were even blips on the UFC's radar. I was training with these guys and sparring with them, and Lyman Good. And I was going with these guys, and I was better than a lot of them. I was out striking them, and these guys were like great strikers. And I was going with these boxers, and I was doing good at these boxers, and I was wrestling with these wrestlers. And so I'm like, man, I'm still pretty good. I was sparring with the guys at AMA Fight Club, and dude, I was fighting guys. I was sparring guys, 5-pounders in the UFC and 205-pounders in the UFC, and in Strikeforce, and dude, I was fucking them up. There was this guy Adlon. He was a Strikeforce guy. He's
Fuck. Jamie. Shit. Jamie, can you hear me, bro?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, man. No, go ahead, man. You're saying about Agblon, bro, the Strikeforce.
Yeah, do you know Adlon?
No, man. No, I was a Strikeforce fan a bit later on, bro. Fucking hell. Fuck's sake. Fuck me in the butt. Why is this fucking up for now?
What's going on? I can see you.
I hear you, bro.
Okay. What the fuck?
What's going on with it? How
about now?
Yeah, we're cool. We're cool.
Okay. All right. So I had Adlon was like my main training partner, and he was a Strikeforce guy, and there were other UFC guys in there, and Jim Miller wouldn't fucking spar with me. And he's got like the most wins in UFC, or tied for the most. The motherfucker in 2011 wouldn't spar with me. We grappled one time. I think I knee barred him, and he was supposed to be this fucking jiu-jitsu king. Dude, so I went out to New Jersey and I started sparring with all these guys. And the only thing I'd ever known was like my little hub in Phoenix or in Tempe, Arizona Combat Sports. And I trained with Ryan Bader, CB Dalloway, Aaron Simpson. I had Carlos Condit come in. So I had good guys to train with, but I didn't really realize like how good they were because they were all only thing I'd ever known. Yeah. And so I went out to AMA and I got to experience training with other guys, and these are guys who were successful. And I realized like, man, these guys aren't fucking that good. These guys aren't better than me. Dude, I was always just so insecure, dude. I always just thought I wasn't good enough. So I would tell, like, I remember telling Carlos Condit, like, yeah, I'm not very athletic. I'm not a good athlete. I'm just a hard worker, and I'm tough. Like I told him that because that's what I truly believe. I really didn't think, because I would see all these kids, and like I would see like the super athletic kids that I played baseball with or football with, or the kids that were on the track team that could they were like doing backflips and could dunk a basketball and all that stuff, and like. I just never thought I was that great of an athlete, but I never had a hard time picking stuff up. But like in my mind, I wasn't a good athlete. And Carlos was like, dude, you're a fucking fantastic athlete. You're one of the best athletes I've ever seen. And I just had this low image of myself. And so going out there and training with all these guys and dude, just honestly fucking these guys up, dude. They're all nice guys, all of them. Nice guys. I appreciate, and I'm not talking shit about them. Yeah. It's just, you got to call a fucking spade a spade. I was better than them. I was the biggest fucking swinging dick in that room. It was me and Adlon. No one else was tough enough to go with that motherfucker. Everybody else was scared of him. And I would go with anybody. It didn't matter how big you were. I was coming at you. You were going to be in for a fight. I can't tell you how many times I dropped guys. And but whatever. Like, again, those guys, they were tough. They took it. They showed up. They made me better. But they showed me that I was good. and they helped me believe in myself. So I moved back to Phoenix, and I moved back to Arizona at the end of 2011. And I just had enough in New Jersey. I fucking hated it. Dropped out of school. That wasn't for me. Being that far away from home wasn't for me.
Right.
My mom had got diagnosed with cervical cancer, which
Shit.
I thought was pretty serious, which at the time it wasn't. I don't want to like freak anybody out. It wasn't that serious. So cervical cancer at my mother's age isn't, it can't be a bad thing, but what she had wasn't bad. She got a complete hysterectomy. Everything was fine. Nothing metastasized, whatever. She was fine. But hearing my mom had cancer, I'm like, fuck that. I packed my car. I dropped out of school that day, packed my car. I was on the road. I was back in Arizona, I think in 48 hours, dude. Done.
Jeez.
My family's everything. I miss my family. I was in New Jersey. There was a hurricane and an earthquake within like the first 6 months I was out there. I'm like, you know what? I'm done with this place. I'm out of here. So I came home and I started training. Again. And I was looking to get a job, and I wanted to start fighting again. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give this another try. But I'd gotten a job, started working. I was doing medical sales via just phone, just cold calling.
Oh shit!
Calling customers, trying to sell people medical billing services. So I was calling up offices, trying to get them, just trying to make a buck, dude. And I was getting paid $3,500 a month. I was having to work like six to 8 hours a day, essentially in a call center. And then I was going to the gym, and my jiu-jitsu coach from Arizona Combat Sports decided to leave and open up his jiu-jitsu only school that was only gi. So like my team just kind of like dispersed. All the strikers stayed at Arizona Combat Sports. All my jiu-jitsu buddies and training partners went to Gustavo Dantes to his jiu-jitsu and only did jiu-jitsu. And then Ryan Bader, CB Dalloway, Aaron Simpson, and all the guys that I had trained with fighting, they went and opened up their own gym and did their own thing, and they didn't really invite me. And I understand why. Like I was a 155 pounder. They were 185 and 205 pounders. It really wasn't. Once you get to a certain level, size does matter. Once you get to a certain level of skills, size does matter. And they just got too strong for me. I couldn't really grapple with them. I could boxing spar with them. And I could kickboxing spar with them, but I couldn't do too many rounds because they just hit so fucking hard. You know, they'd just fuck me up. I would just take too big of a beating. So I had to start training I had to like swallow my pride, and I called Benson Henderson's trainer over at the MMA lab and asked if they would let me start training with them a couple days a week. And they told me every Tuesday, Thursday, they do grappling, and Tuesday, Thursdays are grappling days, and every Saturday they do sparring. Yeah. So I was doing Monday, Wednesday, Fridays at Arizona Combat Sports, doing all my striking and conditioning, strength and conditioning on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, strength and conditioning on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and striking. Tuesdays and Thursdays were grappling and wrestling and pad work. And Saturdays were MMA sparring. And then on Mondays and Fridays, on Monday or Friday, depending on which day, I would have wrestling with college wrestlers, whether it was Grand Canyon University, or I'd have ASU guys come in, or I would just go, or we would do wrestling practice at the lab. So essentially, I was doing all my grappling at the lab. I was doing all my sparring and striking at Arizona Combat Sports. Yeah. And at the lab, I was training with Benson Henderson, Efren Escudero, Scott Holtzman. Now, Sugar Sean O'Malley was there before he was Sugar Sean O'Malley. Was Yassine Mesa, John Moraga. There was just a lot of UFC guys, and John Moraga was actually with me at Arizona Combat Sports. Him and I, like, he's the one I kind of followed his game plan. He was doing all of his striking at Arizona Combat Sports and doing all of his grappling over at the lab. So I just kind of followed him. And dude, it just invigorated my career. So
Man.
I was going over there. I beat up a couple guys in some local regional shows. And then after I think I beat like 2 guys in a row. I had 2 finishes within like 3 minutes. And the UFC, like a last minute call to fight Edson Barbosa came. And that was it, man. That was my ticket back. And even though I thought maybe I was going to lose and he was going to fuck me up, I just wanted another shot at the UFC, and that's kind of how it played out, dude.
Oh man, I mean, what a fucking story, man. What a fucking story, bro. Now, because it shows, you know what it shows, Jamie? It shows that, you know what, yeah? Fuck this. That all you needed, bro, was that time off. You just needed that bit of time. Get yourself together, yeah? Evaluate your position, your condition, your body, yeah? Go back, bro, and you went to work, man. You went to work and going to AMA and down to Jersey, bro. Was that something that sort of helped your movement? You know, because you're predominantly staying in Arizona, then going off to Jersey. Yeah, bro. Was that like, okay, cool? I need to open my mind up a bit if I'm ever gonna come back. Was that your mindset, bro, going to Jersey, or how did you feel when you made that move?
No, that's a really good question. And I know I sounded kind of arrogant earlier when I was saying I fucked everybody up there, but for the most part,
That's
I
all
did.
right, man. That's
No,
all
like
right.
I mean, for the most, I won. I don't recall losing any sparring rounds there.
Yeah.
Maybe Adlon had gotten a round or 2, but I don't remember losing any rounds there. And so yeah, like it just showed me, you know, I was good enough, dude. Going there showed me I was good enough, and I'll always be grateful for that experience. Like again, like I know I sounded ignorant, but or no, not ignorant. I sounded arrogant,
That's
but I'm grateful. I was grateful for that opportunity. I was grateful for going there. I'm glad I went there. I'm glad they were able to show me that I was good enough. Um, but ultimately, it took me growing up. It took me kind of understanding that the UFC is a business. It's not all about me. And if I want something, I have to take it. And I can't expect them to just give me a handout. I can't expect them to treat me like Uriah Faber, you know, which is what I wanted. But I wanted them to treat me how they treated Uriah. I wanted to be treated like I was a guy that went out there and laid it all on the line for them and put on exciting fights. And they never treated me like that. And I had to learn a lesson in business and in adulthood that you don't always get what you want and you don't always get what you deserve. So you just got to fucking take it. What's more important to you? And my legacy was what was more important to me. I wanted to go out. I didn't want what people remembered of me in that Shane Roller fight. I didn't want that to be the last thing that they remember. I wanted to show them that I was a warrior, that I was a fighter, that I wasn't this coward chicken heart that they thought I was in the WEC.
Yeah.
And that second time around the UFC allowed me to show everybody just that.
Oh, man, fuck yeah. I mean, bro, I think today you've really just opened my eyes, man. And the Jamie Varner I knew growing up, yeah, bro, and the guy I watched, yeah, bro. I kind of, this is why I love doing this, man. Yeah, because like whether I'm interviewing veterans like yourself or up and comers, it's great to see them not only as fighters but as human beings. Yeah, bro, as a person. Yeah, bro, and I love that, man. Thank you so much, bro, for coming on the show and sharing your experiences with me, man, and the fans, bro. It's been a fucking pleasure, man. I have to say.
Thank you, man. And it's guys like you, people like you, that still remember, you know, the veterans, you know, the guys of old. Like, you know, hearing from you guys like that, it does make us feel good. It does. It makes all the beatings and all the time spent in the gym, all the nights that I cried in my fucking car, dude, or I was crying in the ambulance on the way, you know, home from a hospital or back from a hospital, or after getting my ass kicked in sparring and not thinking I was good enough. These times, these moments when people reach out and they remember and they say kind things to us, man, fuck, it makes all that shit worth it. And it's honestly, man, it's life-changing. It's great. It makes it all worthwhile. So thank you so much. And don't forget about the Brian Bulls, the Miguel Torreses. Don't forget about those guys.
I never do, man. That's why I grew up watching, Jamie. That's exactly what I grew up watching, man. Thank you so much, bro, for coming on the show. Have a good day, man, out there. And I hope to speak to you soon, man. We have a lot more to speak about, it looks like, bro.
Yeah, man. Anytime you want to talk. If you need to feel some space, feel some time, just let me know, dude. I would be more than happy to come on here and bullshit with you.
No worries, man. No worries. Thank you so much, Jamie.
No problem, brother. Have a great day.
You too, man.